All right, welcome back to the shop. We are continuing on with our shop cabinets, and today we're going to be drilling all the holes for the adjustable shelves, and to do that, I'm going to use a router and make a jig. All right, so I got this scrap piece of walnut plywood left over from another job. The center of it is that nice gross MDF, but it is reasonably flat and should work fine for this purpose. All right, it is a little bit too short, doesn't quite reach that top shelf, but we're not going to put any shelves that high anyways, so I'm going to rip this to width on the table saw. All right, so the idea of this jig is to use this collar with the router, and this collar will drop into holes to follow along as we plunge out all the holes. So I need to drill a bunch of holes, but I'm only going to mark out the first two holes, and we'll use a little trick at the drill press to accurately drill the rest of them. But first, we need to do a little cleanup. I'm sure most of you are like me and have flat surface disease, so we just can't help ourselves. All right, so I'm going to use my workpiece to set up a fence here, so I'm just going to go to this second hole here. All right, and I'm going to use the quill lock here to lock it down. All right, so that way it doesn't go anywhere. All right, so I got a piece of scrap wood here that I jointed an edge nice and straight to use as a fence. We'll just butt it up here, clamp it down good. All right, so I'm going to rip this in half. I saved the other half here, and I'm going to use this as the base of my jig. So I'm going to kind of center it on here, and I'm going to transfer my two layout lines onto here because I'm going to need these to set up. All right, lined up on my first line here. All right, so this piece is the base of the jig, or the jig to make the jig. It's the piece that's going to have the follower pin to create all the even spacing. All right, and I'm going to move over to my second line. All right, so now my actual workpiece, to get it started, I'm going to line up on my second line. So the first line's here, second line's here. Lock the quill. All right, and I'm just going to clamp this down as a temporary fence. All right, and drill one hole. And I'll flip it over and drill the other hole. So now these two holes are in the exact same spot, so that way it'll guarantee my shelf doesn't rock or anything like that. So now that I got these first two holes set up, I'm going to bring my jig back in to use, and we'll use these holes as our starting points, and we'll just work our way down with the jig, because the jig will have a plug in it to follow. All right, and I just realized I messed up. I wanted it to be on the first hole, so no big deal. We'll come back here and drill this first hole. All right, so normally I would use a piece of 1/2-inch dowel as my follower piece, as my pin, but I'm out of 1/2-inch dowel stock, so while I ate lunch, I just 3D printed this little 1/2-inch stub in there. So it's just a little bit of problem solving. So I'm gonna put a little bit of CA glue on this guy. A little fast action. So my table's pretty well beat up, so I'm going to screw this into the table to hold it in place. Otherwise, I probably use these tracks to clamp it, but it's time to replace this table or do something different. So that's the plan. Drop my bit down in here to line it up, make sure it spins freely. Lock the quill so it stays in place while I screw it down. All right, countersink bit. Dull countersink bit. All right, got that locked down. All right, so in the hole we already drilled, we'll flop over the top of that, and then we'll drill the next hole. So we'll set it down here, make sure we're pushed tight to the fence. Drill that hole, and then we'll just pick it up off of the pin, slide it down to the next hole. And this way we don't have to measure each one. We'll just keep working our way down. All right, now that I got this row done, we're gonna flip it over and do these holes same way. And this is guaranteeing that all of these holes are lining up perfectly all the way across, all the way down on both sides of the cabinet, so my shelves will lay flat without rocking on the shelf pins. All right, look at all these perfectly clean holes, and then there's that one. All right, I put these holes a lot closer than what I normally do because I want as many shelf options as I can get to store as many tools in as small of a space as possible. This guy will snap into each hole as we drill, or route rather. And then this guy goes in here. Tighten this guy down. Put a 1/4 inch bit in. All right, to make sure I line the jig exactly the same way each time, I'm just going to mark this side as down. Do the same thing on this side. So no matter what side I'm working on, I will always know that this is the bottom of the cabinet. And usually I throw away my jigs after I use them because they just clutter up the shop. So, but this one, I'm going to write save on it. Shop cabinets, because I'll probably want to make another one sometime soon in the future. Excellent spelling there. So flush to the front of the cabinet. I'm butted up against this block of wood, so it should be all nice and lined up. All right, so the shelf pins I'm going to use for the shelves, that little post there is just shy of a 1/2 inch, so I'm going to use a 1/2 inch, that way they don't bottom out before they're ready. And to set the depth stop, I'm going to bottom the router out onto the work surface and just slide this guy down until it pinches my spacer, my 1/2 inch spacer there. Tighten it up. All right, so now when I plunge, it'll stop at a 1/2 inch. So with 12 cabinets to build, that means I have 1,536 more holes to go. Well, I won't make you watch me drill all those holes, but thanks for watching. Please hit the subscribe button. Next, we are going to talk about HVLP spray finishing to get these cabinets finished. All right, I think I'm gonna leave this jig attached to the drill press here because it's a bigger surface to put stuff on.